understand this concept right now. Now, for example, there is some standards which I carry about my life. There is some standard about my job, there is some standard about my family life, there is some standard about my finances, and these are the standards which I've been comfortable with. All right? So these are the standards around me. Now, what happened if there are certain changes started happening around me, and I realize that my standard about my job, my standard about my pay, my standard about my family life has been disturbed slightly. It is not the same. It has disturbed slightly. It is not on the same level. It has disturbed. It has got some gap over here. This is called an anxiety state. So I get into an anxiety state because that standard about my job, about my conditions, you might have remembered why I've been causing that, because if you see, as we are going through a change scenario, so there are people who've been long associated with a company. They always reflect upon what they used to have in the past. And then when they reflect upon that, what they see? They see actually a gap over here. They say there was something which they used to have and now it is not more there. Now, this is an anxiety state. How an anxiety transform into a stress. Now, as we go prolong, as this state, as this situation, which is not according to my standard, but basically, sorry about that, which is not my standard, but exactly my reality, that man is my reality. So this is my reality is becoming very different from what I used to have, and there is a wider gap which has been happening over here. There is a wider gap. The bigger the gap it started happening, I go into the stressful state. This is a stressful state. Now, one of the things which is important in the stressful state, as far as I am in the stressful state, I have a belief that someday it will be reversed back. Someday it will come back to that situation. So this is a stressful state where I'm having some of the belief, some of the expectation, someday it will be reversed back. So this is a stressful state. Now, what about if it extend up to some level that it has extended too long, that I started believing that the gap has become so large that there is no way it is going to come back again onto the same level which I used to have. This is called a depression level. So what is the difference between when we say stress? Stress is a sort of a condition where I see a gap between what was my mental standard, and I also see what is my existing scenario. This is a stressful state, but in a stressful state, I always have some expectation, someday it will reverse back. What is the difference between stress and depression? That this gap extends too long that I realize, I got a conviction that no matter what, there's no question that this gap is going to be covered back again. This is called a depression state. And you know that many of the people, depression is a hopeless state. It means that people started feeling that there's nothing they can do about the situation, and then they feel disempowered and they don't want to take any actions, and that sort of scenario which it happened. Now, question is, what is the antidote of it? What is the thing if we started doing in our life that we can stay away from the stress? This is $1 million question. What I've said earlier, I said stress is a situation in which we see the gap, right? Remember that, the word gap I'm using. Stress and depression, we are seeing a gap in our life. Antidote of it, the psychologists say, if you adopt an attitude of gratitude, if you started looking into the things rather than which you don't have, rather focusing on the things which you already have, so you started getting a feeling of gratitude within yourself. Now, the feeling of gratitude is entirely different from the feeling of emptiness, stress and depression. In the gratitude feeling, you've always been thankful for so many things around. So what is the feeling you got? You got a feeling of abundance within yourself, a feeling of abundance. So whenever you are having a feeling of abundance, you like to share with the people around, with the family around. You don't have that thing. Now, interesting point to tackle with the stress is, in our brain, we cannot have two different conflicting scenarios at the same time. I can either be stressful or I will either be grateful. I will either be happy or I will either be sad. So what situation I would like to be? So if I carry an abundance of gratitude in myself with all the things which I've been doing around, what is going to be happen? That this aspect of emptiness in my life will stay away from myself. So I'll be more in a resourceful state. Now, what are the best things which normally do? Whenever you are in the giving, in the abundance, in the gratitude state, what happened? Our mind release some of the neurotransmitter and the hormones which is called dopamine, serotonin. Now this is entirely different from the cortisol, which in the stressful situation has been raised. The happiness hormones, where we feel happy, where we feel energetic, is started happening with the dopamine, that neurotransmitter moving around. So actually the most important part, in a state of gratitude, I'm being in a resourcefulness state. I'm being better able to tackle my situation. Someone has rightly mentioned, it said that don't wish that your problems get smaller. Don't wish that your problems and challenges become smaller. Rather wish that you grow larger than your problems. You grow larger than your challenges. Now, how come we can grow larger than from our challenges? It is because of that gratitude which we carry in our life. One of the best practice which I normally have, and just I can share with you, that I have actually a register is a spiral-minded copy, and I called it as my register of my gratitude journal. So what I did, actually, whatsoever the blessings are having in my life, smaller or bigger, I keep on writing into that, Now what happened whenever I shifted into the stress and depression mode and I started seeing a bleak picture around, I see a darkness around, I see there's nothing going to be happen, my medicine is I open up my gratitude journal and I started reading it one by one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I keep on reading that. Now, when I keep on reading that, so what happened? My mind automatically switched that, Kamran, you already have abundance. You already have abundance. And when I'm having an abundance, my state, my physiology change altogether. And that is a situation what I always say. Now, one of the things I would like to reflect upon, because you can say there are so many challenges sometime, even we have been doing that. One more tip, take it from me. If you have pen and paper, you can write it down. There are 3 questions I will ask you, you have to ask if whenever you are being in any stressful situation, any depression situation, you have to ask these 3 questions and you have to write the answer for it. Question number 1. If there is any challenge, any scenario, anything which is causing you a depression or stress, write it down. What exactly is the situation? What precisely is the challenge you are facing right now? Write it down. Because the problem is, if we keep that issues in our head, if we keep it issues, our mind is very creative, is keep on adding it, keep on getting more flavor into it. So the best part is write it down on a piece of paper. What exactly is your worry? Write it down over here. So once you will write it down, so you will have a precise identification what exactly is bothering you. So question number 1, what exactly is the challenge? What exactly is the concern which is giving you a botheration? So you have to write it down. That question number 1. Now question number 2 is very magical. What is question number 2? Question number 2, you have to write it down. If this is the challenge, what is the worst scenario could happen? What is the worst possible scenario could happen if this is a challenge? So for example, if we say, all right, Kamran, we have been going through a situation, we are very much worried about ourselves, we are worried about the jobs and things like that. All right, fine. I accepted that. What is the worst possible scenario could happen? Write it down. So you say, all right, if I'm not having a job with myself, what I'm going to do? Now in that instance, the worst come worst is, okay, I'd lose a job. Now the point is, if I lose a job, this is the worst, right? Nothing beyond that? Okay, question number 2 is done. Now question number 3 said, what are the things currently in your area of control where you can started taking actions which can mitigate those worst possible scenarios? Interesting scenario. What was the question number 1? What is the challenge? What is the concern? What is causing you stress? Question number 2, what is the worst possible scenario could happen? Write it down. Number 3, what are the actions currently in your area of control which you can take right now to mitigate or to reverse that worse situation. My dear friend, the question is, that is not from me, that 3 questions I distilled from a book which was written in 1934 by the author named Dale Carnegie. And the title of the book, which was a bestseller in millions, and it said, be happy and don't worry, be happy. Mean you have to have a right to be live. Someone has widely said that each and everything can be snatched from us. Someone can snatch from our bank accounts, our financial status, our title, can strip us off with each and everything. But one thing no one can snatch from us, and that is our attitude. That is the way we look towards the life. That is the way, if we carry that gratitude within ourselves, no one can snatch that. And let me put it in high words, let me put it into the bold letters, that if this attitude what we get in our life, because someone has said that your attitude in your life, it defines the altitude you have in your life. Your attitude in your life defines the altitude you are having in your life. So whatsoever the attitude I carry as a person, that defines the altitude I'm having in my life. That attitude I carry as a professional, that defines the altitude I'm having as a professional.